Liberty. Ionescu, truth. Jonquel Jones with a tough one.
Stewie, little shoulder shake. Oh, what a shot!
Phoenix with the move down the lane. Cloud into the paint. Reverses it in. The New York Liberty are WNBA champions.
Hey Libs fans, and welcome back to Liberty FM. The Liberty came into today's game riding a solid 3-game winning streak with some really encouraging performances on both ends of the floor. The team showed great energy, ball movement, and defensive intensity that had us feeling optimistic about where this season is headed. But today was a tough one, a hard-fought battle against the Minnesota Lynx team that just didn't go our way. We're going to break down what worked early on, where things slipped, and what the Liberty need to focus on moving forward after the loss. François, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. And the last time we spoke was before the last Connecticut game. And the New York Liberty really needed to beat that team, including the Dallas game right after, because there were two teams that beat us the previous week, and you couldn't allow another loss against bottom teams in the league. And I think that Sabrina Ionescu really took our hearts this game against Connecticut, and the fact that she didn't want her team to lose, because she literally carried us in that game with 36 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists, and only scoring 1 free, scoring most of her points in the paint. And I think that Stewie, as she was talking before the game against Minnesota, recognized Sabrina's leadership in her absence and with all the injuries. And I think that is one thing, one of the highlights of those past few weeks, what we've witnessed during those past struggles, is how Sabrina is taking on that leadership role. And even though she won't be the MVP at the end of the season, she is bringing her name in the conversation, or at least in the top 5 of this league. So when you have Sabrina carrying you like this, nothing can happen to you when you know that you have so many players absent. So that was definitely one of the highlights in that 3-game winning streak. What did you make of Sabrina's success and, you know, her way of scoring in many different ways and not just scoring threes?
Yeah, I mean, she also got, Eastern Conference Player of the Month.
Yeah.
And it was well-deserved. She played her heart out. The Liberty are down 3 key players, and she's putting it on her back to try to lead this team and do all she can on the court, on both ends of the court. And so kudos to her for just giving it her all. I think these games against Connecticut and Dallas, the last games they had against them that ended up in a loss, the Liberty just looked like they got caught on the back foot. They didn't look like they were even ready, especially I would say against Dallas, where that game in Dallas, you were down by 30. And yeah, you clawed your way back, but it was such a big hole to overcome. They just ran out of time in overcoming that deficit. And here you can tell in these games between Connecticut and Dallas, Sabrina was like, we're not dropping these games.
Yeah.
these games we're winning no matter what. I don't care what I have to do. And you specifically saw that in the Connecticut game, where it was just great to see her that she only made one. She had one made 3.
Yeah.
I think she only had 2 or 3 attempts in that game. And so otherwise she was her floaters, just going to the hole, going to the bucket, getting foul calls, just doing every little thing she can in the paint. She was just really aggressive. And I think it just shows her growth in these last years in the W, that she's just not some 3-point shooter. And yeah, she can, launch it from there pretty effectively, but just seeing her growth in the game and teams not knowing exactly what to do with her sometimes, because I think Connecticut was a little stunned by the fact that she was driving so much. Yeah. I think you're used to seeing her kind of play in that outer perimeter, but she was really going for it in this game. And so kudos to her. I do think she deserves to be in the conversation. We know that it's probably, based on what we've seen so far in the MVP race, is probably going to be Napheesa Collier. Maybe Alyssa Thomas will be in the conversation. Even Alicia Gray could be in the conversation. But yeah, Sab definitely deserves to be up there as well.
I think in terms of the MVP conversation, it's going to depend on how many games Napheesa Collier is going to miss. Let's just say that she's missing a good chunk of the month of August and comes back in September towards the end of the season. Mm-hmm. You could maybe have a conversation between Alyssa Thomas and Napheesa Collier, because it would be kind of hard to give the MVP trophy to someone that missed like 1/4 of the season.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's been so dominant, and Minnesota has been leading the league all throughout the season that I don't think it's going to be hard to not give it to Fee. I don't think she's going to miss that many games, but I think that she created such a gap that even Alyssa Thomas, that has been balling right now, it's going to be hard for her to catch up with Fee.
She created the gap, but I would give Alicia Gray a look too.
Alicia Gray,
Atlanta.
yeah.
She has been
is
coming.
definitely a nice surprise this season.
She has been coming, and I think, I do think, Fee may get the edge on everyone this year, but you got some players out there that could definitely get a good look too.
Yeah. Now, the other positive thing in that free game winning streak from the New York Liberty was Emma Meesseman. No wonder why Sherry Reeves was a little salty this morning. I'm sure that now she's happy that, they beat the New York Liberty, so I don't think she pondered too much on it. But the fact that she mentioned Emma Meesseman this morning in the pregame conference, maybe you felt like she still feels some type of way about the fact that Emma Meesseman picked the New York Liberty over the Minnesota Lynx. She did say a couple of weeks ago after the announcement that she thought that Emma made the wrong decision, which was a pretty strong statement to make. But Emma Meesseman, we knew how good of a player she was, but obviously now seeing her with the New York Liberty, it's been amazing in such a short time how easy it has been for her to settle into this team and make an impact immediately. When you have such a high IQ, you have the ability to adapt to any system pretty easily. And with a passing ability, the way she set up screens for other players, her unselfishness, her vision, the way she's like knowing when to attack in the paint, when to take mid-range, sometimes taking threes. She was doing pretty much everything. Even though she had minutes restrictions in her first 2 games, she had 15 minutes for the Connecticut game. And then her second game against Dallas, she was on the 25-minute restrictions. And then the third game against Dallas, she had no minutes restrictions, and we saw how important she was into the team. That first half in that game in Dallas was nothing but amazing. When you think about what other players are saying about her, you realize that a lot of them, JJ, Stewie, I've played with her, and so even though it's been a while, you see that the connection comes back fairly quickly. And I really like what Stewie said today about Emma Meesseman. The fact that both of them try to find the open teammate and work effectively with a traditional center. She's seen Emma Meesseman getting more comfortable, especially in the first half of the away game against Dallas. And she compared her to a quarterback. Moving the ball and finding open players. And she expects her to help the team a lot now that she's going to be back very, very soon. What did you make so far of Emma Meesseman and how much she's going to help the team? I think everybody has been praising her and been so happy to have her on the team, especially with so many people out.
Yeah, it's huge. I love what I've seen so far, and she hasn't even had a full practice.
She hasn't had actually one practice with the team. That is crazy.
For her to come in, not have a practice, and just kind of go on the fly, it shows you her IQ and just how great of a basketball player she is. I love how she keeps it simple, and she said it herself. Like, basketball to her is easy. Like, you just got to if you keep it simple, you're gonna get buckets. You don't have to go out and be super flashy and all that. If you keep it simple, you'll likely get your buckets. You'll make your shots, and she does that. I think in these first few games, we've seen this small sample size with Emma and just her connection with JJ as well. I think that's going to be huge for the Liberty and using their bigs and putting them in better positions. And she can be that quarterback sometimes on the court and getting to her open man. And so I just think with somebody with that type of IQ, you can't wait till they actually have a practice and really work together and try to solidify some things. I mean, she's doing the best she can. So kudos to her coming in and still learning everyone, still learning the team. So I don't put anything besides praise on Emma right now. Even with the loss today to Minnesota, there may be, I would have liked to see some more shots from her. But again, this was her first look at Minnesota as well. So I would expect their next game against Minnesota. She got used to it now. Okay, she sees the team, and now she can come in and probably be even more effective against them. But yeah, I love what Emma brings to the team. And once Stewie is back, I do think they're going to be really dangerous.
Yeah, so today, it was the second matchup between the Minnesota Lynx and the New York Liberty. And even though now Minnesota has created quite a gap now between the first spots in the W and the rest of the league, you were kind of hopeful that with the fact that we're going to face them so many times in the months of August and with Natasha Cloud's injury, that maybe, even though it's going to be hard, that maybe they could reduce the gap at the top of the league. So I was really looking forward to that game, see how the New York Liberty were going to do against Minnesota without Natasha Cloud and now adding Emma Meesseman into the team. And I felt like even though the first half was a low-scoring affair, I felt like the way New York started the game was really positive. As you mentioned, Emma and JJ's connection was tremendous, especially in the first quarter. The fact that they try to find each other so many times. We've been asking that from Stewie and JJ, and I felt like JJ and Emma have been more intentional in the way that they've connected with one another. So I felt like knowing that Minnesota doesn't necessarily have bigs that can match up in terms of height and power with JJ and Emma, I felt like, that created quite a bit of damage in the first quarter. And we saw some very unusual lineup. I think there was one lineup that really surprised me that worked pretty well, especially in the second quarter, was Natasha Cloud, Johannès, Stephanie Talbot, Izzy Harrison, and Emma Meesseman. Very unusual lineup, but I felt like the connection, obviously, with Natasha Cloud and Izzy Harrison worked pretty well. Natasha Cloud, she just took what the defense gave her and was very effective from the perimeter. And Izzy Harrison continues to impress. She created quite a few baskets for herself in the paint and also getting some assists from Natasha Cloud. So even though, both teams didn't score a lot of points, I was happy with the way New York played in the first half. And I would say up until the beginning of the third quarter. What did you make of the first half overall, and whether you felt that even though we were ahead, the fact that it was a low-scoring game maybe kind of suited Minnesota, and then they will be able to make the adjustments later on?
Yeah, I think the first half, the Liberty, I think if Sabrina had gotten off a few more shots, and if some shots went down, this would have been a different game. The first half, they did play well. They stuck in there. They had a slim lead. And we knew this isn't going to be, we didn't think this would be a blowout game. This was going to be tight and, maybe someone would pull away. Hopefully it would have been the Liberty, but in this case it wasn't. But I think what I saw from the team today was just the toughness in the first half. And you also saw that from your role players. I think everyone that came off the bench did the things that they're really good at. Whether Talbot just coming in with the rebounds. Like, if there's one thing Talbot's going to give you, she may not give you a lot of points. She going to get a rebound. She is going to get you a rebound somewhere. She's always, she just has a great presence of mind around the basket, which I appreciate. And yeah, there's other things that she could work on, but that I'll give her praise for sure. She's always around the basket getting rebounds. Izzy had a great game too. It's tough. Minnesota's a tough team, but Izzy did her best coming off of the bench and getting some buckets, key buckets for the Liberty, keeping them close in this game, as is Natasha Cloud. She got a couple of 3-pointers. She definitely got things moving. I think her connection also with Emma is also really great. But I think also for them, it was a lot for all of them to, you were happy to see your role players doing well and doing all they could, but you needed your starters. You needed Sabrina in this game, I think, and JJ to really sort of lead the way, especially in points, and that didn't happen. So yeah, because it was a low-scoring affair, you could give this edge because Minnesota is such a great defensive team. I think they're probably at the top, right?
Yeah.
Of the defensive team out there. So you give the edge, even though Liberty up by 2, and then how the Liberty, they have the problem coming into the third. Sometimes they start strong or they may not start strong and come back strong. It's always a flip for them in the third quarter of games. And so, yeah, I still think it gave an edge to Minnesota despite what the Liberty were doing, but you could see some of the holes. And I think Minnesota exploited that in the second half.
Yeah, they definitely exploited that. And unfortunately, the major issue right now for the New York Liberty are the turnovers. We saw the two games that New York had lost against Connecticut and Dallas. The big issue was the turnovers that probably led them to lose those games. And sometimes it was unforced errors. It wasn't even pressure from the defenses. It was just the Liberty being careless with the ball. And I think this game was another example of careless passing. They had 20 turnovers in this game. Minnesota scored 22 points out of those 20 turnovers. You cannot expect to win a game against the best team in the league when you have 20 turnovers in the game. Sometimes I think it was just simple entry passes. I think they were really deliberate in trying to find Emma. But the problem is that you would try to give her the ball when she wasn't even set in the paint, or like you clearly saw that the defender was on her and there was no way to give her the ball, but you still try to pass her the ball anyway. And I know that Natasha Cloud, Sam, quite a few times tried to pass it to Emma, which led to turnovers. And then there were some careless turnovers. I think after a great block from JJ, she tried to, dribble in between her legs and just lost the ball. That led to an easy layup. Then there was a basket that Minnesota scored. And then in the inbounds, JJ threw the ball. Marine and Saab were not even looking, and then went straight into the stands. I mean, at this level, you cannot expect to win a game when you're so careless with the ball.
Yeah, it's hard when you see Liberty and that many turnovers, and that, as we said, in their loss to Connecticut and to Dallas, their turnovers were pretty high, and the same in this game. Sometimes the Liberty are their own worst enemy. They get into these bad habits, especially going into the second half of games. And it's hard when it almost just snowballs for them. And, I feel like a lot of the Liberty struggles are with these passes, these errant passes where you need to shorten the distance. A lot of times, Minnesota, you both know each other. These teams know each other really well. There's nothing new, and
No, you don't think Jen Shore is sharing all the secrets, Liberty secrets
that's really
to Sharon
doubtful.
Reeves?
They know each other really well, and so you have to protect the basketball, and they just didn't do that today, and you can tell. I mean, there were so many turnovers, so many times, whether passing to JJ or Emma, and it would get picked off by the bigs of Minnesota. And you got to give Minnesota credit. They matched big for big, and their bigs did a great job on our bigs today. And so, and also for Minnesota, they're a faster team. Unfortunately, I would say, I don't want to say it's a downside with having Emma, but it's a slight advantage for Minnesota. With Emma, you're not going to be as quick across the floor. She's not as fast as JJ and Stewie or even Niara, but she does have some get up. I've seen her run the floor.
Yeah.
But that may not be her usual thing. And so I think also Minnesota exploited that a little bit, because with Natisha Heidemann, Dejanay Carrington coming in, they scored 28 points between both of them. And a lot of that was just defensive mistakes and just not paying attention and not taking care of the ball. And they really made the Liberty pay today. But for the Liberty, they have to do better for 4 quarters. It's a game of runs. That's true. And with these two teams, each side's going to go on their own run. But when you have that many turnovers, you can't expect to win against the number one team who has a chip on their shoulder.
Oh, yeah. you could tell they have a chip on their shoulder.
They have a chip on their shoulder, and they're coming at you because they want to win. And so, the Liberty, yes, they're down 3 key players who could have really helped them today. I think the game would have been a lot tighter if you even had Stewie in there. But unfortunately, they just got exploited, especially on defense.
Yeah, I mean, as Sabrina said, it was like self-inflicted wounds because players try to force passes instead of letting the game come to them. But I think what Emma Meesseman tried to share and bring her wisdom and a European flair, as she was saying, bring calmness to the team. She felt like, those mistakes are fixable. It's discipline, attention to details, passing to the open sides, cutting with purpose, playing with purpose, sticking to plays, paying attention in timeout and hustle. And I think with her experience and her calmness, that's really going to help. And let's not forget that she hasn't practiced with the team just yet. So that also plays a part. Sabrina often mentions the fact that the roles in the team have changed since all the, injuries have come up. You have to play a role in order to cover what other players that are missing were bringing to the team. So it's not easy that each game your role is different. How Sandy is going to use you for is different. You saw that, for weeks, Rebecca Garner had an important role in the team, and now she's, barely having any minutes. It's not easy, but, I like they said, self-inflicted wounds that could have been easily avoided.
Now, also, kudos to Emma. As you say that, Emma came in this last week, and I would say just her IQ and just playing simple basketball. Like, Emma hasn't gotten beaten much on defense. If someone's, like fast, like a Courtney Williams or something like that, that's one thing. But she hasn't necessarily missed too many of her assignments, I would say. No. Whereas others who have been playing for the Liberty this whole season, you're still missing your assignments. You're still not paying attention to who you're supposed to be on. And I'm sorry, like for the Liberty, these mistakes, yes, are fixable. But you're almost towards the end of the season. When are you going to fix it? Like, you can't just wait until, yes, playoffs is another level. You turn it up, but you got to start tweaking these things right now. And I think that's where the Liberty just got exposed on simple plays where you just need to stay on the person you're defending. And they would take their eyes off, or they would overhelp, or it was just almost too much. And yeah, the self-inflicted wounds. And a team like Minnesota that is that good, they're going to make you pay every time. And for Emma, she's only been with them for a few games. And I feel like she's doing a lot better with not having a full practice with the team. She only practiced with, I think, Sandy and some coaches. Yeah. And for her to just get a grip of what's going on the court, it's kudos to her as well for her IQ and with basketball. I think she is going to help the rest of her teammates once they get into a full practice. She'll be able to help them in a big way.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the area where Minnesota had an advantage today was definitely the speed and the way they executed. Because yes, last year, that infamous Game 5, Sandy decided to play with a big lineup, but I felt like it was a lineup that was quick for a big lineup. When you had Nyara Saboli, Stewie, Leo, JJ, those are people that are fast and quick in the lateral movements. But now we have like a much bigger lineup, much slower lineup. I think that Minnesota took advantage of it. And I think Kellen McBride, I always remember the emotion she had after that Game 5, where she really felt like, Cheryl said that they stole that stuff from us, but I felt like, for Kellen McBride, like, it was almost like personal, like they took something, like, where they felt like they should have won that game. And, I think she made some excuses, but at the same time, she probably realized that they were very close and that it was also on them. Yeah. And I think that this year, especially when she plays against the Liberty, she has that drive that, that you could see in her eyes, and the way she executes, it's flawless. And I think some of those threes that she had, the ball barely touched the net. Like, that's like incredible. And
the shots are pure.
And I think we mentioned it already in the previous game that New York and Minnesota play, her ability to use screens off the ball to get an open shot. I think that New York was a little bit better in terms of like switching and covering for a player, but she was still faster than them. The other thing that New York also struggled with was the defense on the pick and roll. When you have Kellen McBride and Courtney Williams that are so quick, and Courtney's mid-range is like money. it was really difficult, and I really felt like they targeted Sabrina. I think we definitely praised Sabrina this year for her defense. Her defense is much better this season. She's very good at stealing the ball, and that really benefited the team. But I think those past few weeks, she's been doing a lot for the team, so I can't blame her too much. But I definitely feel like the teams have been targeting her on defense, and I felt like a lot of the times she struggled to fight off the screens, and that gave enough space for the guards of Minnesota to take their shots. Whereas, for example, Marine, when she was on the court, she was able to better fight the screens and make it more of a battle in terms of like making sure that the shots from the Minnesota players would be as tough as possible.
Yeah, I think with Marine Johannès, it's been great just seeing her build in her confidence and just seeing her get more minutes on the floor and seeing her take her shot and create, for her teammates. It's really been a huge thing for the Liberty. And I know as they've been saying, like, people are out of their rhythm, they're not in the position that they normally play in. So when everyone's back together, I think, you're going to see a different team. But for Marine, it's just really a great thing just to see her get those minutes and just build and continue to build. And you see, like, they call her the magician for a reason. I mean, she's just been great on the court. And defensively, she doesn't get caught on the screen too much. She may sometimes overhelp, but she doesn't get caught on the screen too much. She's also a little bit of a quicker defender, I would say, than Sabrina. And Sabrina has done a lot in this past week, these past few weeks, and she's really trying to put the team on her back, and so this was an off game for Sab today. I do think she'll come back and she'll be fine, but today was an off game and Minnesota just exploited that.
And that's where you see the difference between players like Alyssa Thomas, Nafisa Collier, Asia Wilson, and then players like Sabrina. She's right there, but there's still a little something missing in the sense that she will have great 3 or 4 games in a row, and then 1 or 2 games where she's completely off, but it's like games where we actually really need her against those top teams.
Well, I think you can include Stewie in that lineup of elite athletes. When you see Stewie, if Stewie has an off game with shooting, she does everything else.
Yeah.
Everything else will pick up. If she knows the shooting's just off today, her defense, getting her players open, getting passes, whatever else she can do on the floor, she will be excellent at, even if her shooting's off that day. And I think that's the part where for Sabrina, when her shooting is on, everything else is on.
Yeah.
When it is off, everything else goes off.
She seems to struggle to kind of like you said, like Stewie will find other ways to be impactful. Whereas Sabrina, you could tell that she's affected by it, and it's kind of hard for her to get going. But you could also argue that now that she kind of has a MVP status, you also see the defenses changing towards her, because Dallas was double or tripling her all throughout the games. And she was saying, like, yes, I might not have scored a lot of points, but I was happy that I got to, serve my teammates wide open and that we got the win. So she's like, I'm fine if that's what they want to do, as long as we win the game. And I also saw that Minnesota also had a special treatment for her, because if you remember the last game in Minnesota, I mean, she was balling. She had 30 or 31 points. So I know that Minnesota was not trying to have another 30-point game from Sabrina, and they adjusted and they put a lot of pressure on her and made it really hard.
But that's another area that she'll just work on. Yeah. I think that she's continually adding to her game. And so I think that's the next area for her in games. It's like, okay, if something, just kind of like how you see her now, like when she quickly recognizes, like, if the 3 ball is not going down, she goes to that mid range, she goes to the floaters, she's attacking, she does more, and you start to see that shift. She doesn't stay at the 3-point line all the time. Now you see that growth where she's reading the defense, she's seeing what she can get, and if something's off, she switches gears. So I think in that, she'll continue to grow and get better at in knowing that when she's having a slightly off day, we're human, it happens, that you can use other areas that you're excellent in, even if that part of your game is off, don't let everything else be off. Like, try to figure out where you can still affect the game.
Yeah, and the other thing that just came into my mind is also how important Johannès Carrington and Natasha Cloud, they scored 28 points coming off the bench. And I felt like New York had no answer for them, whether it was their speed. I mean, even Johannès scored a couple of open threes.
Yeah.
They had no answer for those two players. What did you make of their performances and how the Liberty kind of was unable to stop them?
For Natasha Cloud, I would say speed. I think she used her speed and got to the bucket, and that you saw the play where poor Marine, like
she literally was asking I got it.
I got
Everybody
this one.
went to the weak side and it was just 1-on-1 against Marine.
And she used her speed and got around, and she got the screen as well, which was helpful. But she used her speed, and then that's what it was. Johannès, she got some shots off, but a part of that, it was the defensive lapses for the Liberty, I would say, for Johannès Carrington getting the points, and also overhelping. You overhelp and left her wide open a couple of times, and then transition defense. It's a mix of things, but all things that are fixable for the Liberty. But again, self-inflicted wounds led to her getting the points that she got, and it's tough when you have these players coming off the bench and you're just not. They just didn't look prepared for them at all, and so they got the best of the Liberty today. I don't think that Natasha Cloud, she can have really great games and it can kind of swing back and forth sometimes, but I think she is going to also still continue to be an X factor. Johannès Carrington, I think she's brand new to the team, so I think she will do well under Cheryl Reeves. However, I also think that there are things that if you tighten up your defense, she's not going to get the points that she got today.
Yeah, I mean, so far you would think that they made the right choice by bringing Johannès Carrington into the team. For those of you who had any doubts, because she kind of struggling to fit into the Dallas wing system, you saw that she had an immediate impact as soon as she joined the Minnesota Lynx team. So it's going to be interesting to see how she's going to continue to improve and bring something to the team and see what impact she will have in the playoff, because that is definitely something intriguing and something that Minnesota didn't have. It's going to help Courtney Williams to not have to use so much energy on defense. So, so far so good for Minnesota. And the other and last points that I wanted to share about this game was Jonquel Jones, because let's not forget that Jonquel Jones was MVP in the finals last year against Minnesota. She dominated the bigs. They had literally no answers for her. And I felt like today was a little frustrating in the sense that she only scored 11 points. I mean, you look at the stats, you would think it's not too bad. She was 4 for 7 from the field, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 11 points. But she was only 16% usage on offense. That means that they barely play with her. The only moments where I felt like she was really utilized was that first quarter, as I mentioned earlier, with Emma Meesseman be intentional at passing her the ball in the paint. But after that, she kind of disappeared. And it was sad because the few times where they set a play for her, she was dominant. But then after that, we kind of almost forgot about JJ. And I wonder if it was more due to the fact that the New York Liberty were not playing enough for her, or if it was because of Alana Smith's defense. And also that bench player, Maria Klunendikova, I'm sorry if I messed up her name, but I felt number 77 from the Minnesota Lynx had a tremendous impact defensively, as well, making it really hard for the bigs of the Liberty.
They match big for bigs, and I think, this was a great game for the Minnesota bigs. You weren't sure what you were going to get with number 77. I'm not going to say her name because I'll butcher it tremendously. But she had a great game, though, today. And so did Alana Smith. And I think that you got to play for JJ still. It's going to be a battle no matter what. It's not going to be easy, but you still need to play for JJ. I also think Minnesota's defense is what prevented the Liberty from playing more for JJ. I think a lot of their guards got trapped at the top of the key. I think they got trapped on that perimeter. And I just don't think they saw the court well. There were too many times where the paint was wide open. There was no one cutting. No one even thought about cutting. It seemed like everybody just stayed, on that outer perimeter. And so no one could really like slash to the basket either. It only happened maybe a couple of times, but maybe in that first half. But then in the second, you just felt like Minnesota locked them down defensively and they could barely get to JJ. And then the passing. There were poor passes that were happening and that just didn't go either to Emma's wheelhouse or JJ's wheelhouse. And what ended up happening? Alana Smith would intercept. And so she can read our team very well, Alana Smith. And I think you have to play they have to be quicker. They can't sit there and as they're watching a play occur, Alana's just waiting. She knows what you're looking at. She's seeing what you're doing. And you're trying to get to JJ or Emma. Nothing's quick. The ball isn't popping. And so you don't take the defense out of rhythm. They're just waiting for you to make a play and they know exactly kind of where you're going and they anticipate correctly. They steal the ball and they make a bucket on the other end. And so that's sort of how the Liberty played. They didn't have toughness today against Minnesota and they need to find it because as these games continue, you have teams that they're about to face that are trying to make sure they secure a playoff spot. So they're coming in hard, as well as you're going to face Minnesota who has that chip on their shoulder and wants to make sure that that they can beat you and that they will beat you if it's a finals rematch. And so for the Liberty, they're going to have to figure out where they can be tough on the court.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Some of the players did say that they felt they were a little too predictable on offense. And when you have a strong defense like Minnesota, that you made it easier on them. And you saw the way Minnesota execute on offense. It's more unpredictable. There's more quickness, more assertiveness. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely something to work on. And you also mentioned toughness. Natasha Cloud didn't shy away from it during the post-game conference. She did say that we like toughness, and the other teams are noticing that, and they're like calling us out on it. So that's definitely something that they also need to bring as well.
I would say toughness and confidence. I think the Liberty, when I compare them and Minnesota's starting five. Well, I don't want to say starting five. I should say whomever's on the court for Minnesota, starting five or bench players, when they are on the court, at any point, one of their players can shoot the ball. And you can tell that they're confident in doing that. They're not just, they'll bust up plays for McBride and Courtney and stuff like that. But even if it's a broken play, no one is afraid of taking the shot. No one is that hesitant with taking the shot. On the Liberty, hesitation. They're always looking for Sab or JJ and maybe now Emma, but there's hesitation. And I even saw it with Emma today. There were a couple of times she was open from three, and she's not, maybe that's not her shot, but she was making them.
Oh, trust me, she can make those. So.
She can make them. And she was hesitant. She was hesitant a few times from the 3-point line. And I see that all the time, that there's a confidence that is lacking from certain members of the New York Liberty. And they're confident when plays are set for them, but when it's a broken play, sometimes they hesitate and they're quick to pass. And that's great that you want to pass the ball sometimes for a better shot, but sometimes you're open and you just need to take it. Or the lane is wide open, go to the bucket, go to the basket. Instead of trying to get a 3-point shot, the lane is open for you. Go. Maybe you'll get a foul, something. And they always seem to pass on those opportunities. And so, Minnesota showed you that. I think they have more confidence, down the roster, I would say, than the Liberty do.
Yeah, and now it's going to be really hard to catch them up. I mean, the New York Liberty now are 6.5 games behind the Minnesota Lynx. The Minnesota Lynx have 27 wins and 5 losses. New York Liberty have 20 wins and 11 losses. They are now joined in the second spot by the Atlanta Dream, who just beat the Phoenix Mercury today. But we have the upper hand because we have 2 wins in 3 games against Atlanta. So we both with 20 wins and 11 losses, and Phoenix is right behind in the 4th spot. So if the season ended right now, This is what the playoff would look like. We will have Minnesota against Golden State in the first round, New York against Seattle, Atlanta against the Las Vegas Aces, and the Phoenix Mercury against the Indiana Fever. And then potentially New York would face the winner of Atlanta Seattle in the semifinals. So it would be a really tough stretch in the playoff, but there's still quite a few games to play in the season, so a lot of things can change up until then. But this coming week, it's another crazy schedule for the New York Liberty. Go figure how they sorted this schedule.
This is crazy.
This schedule makes absolute no sense. Stewie was saying that they have more games this season, but somehow they're gonna finish the season earlier than last year, with less game and the Olympics in between.
Yeah.
But this season they're going to finish earlier with more games. I don't know how you can.
Well, they're taking away some of the rest days for a lot of these teams. And you can tell, look how many injuries we have going on in the league right now from all teams. I think Seattle's the only team that doesn't have many injuries like currently. Like I think they're the only team that hasn't really been affected. But everyone has had someone out for an extended period of time.
So while the New York Liberty go on the back-to-back LA and Vegas, LA on Tuesday and Vegas on Wednesday, Minnesota will have 0 games until the next time they play, which is against the New York Liberty on Saturday in Minnesota. So 3 games.
They get to fully rest and relax.
While Minnesota just relax and chill at home and just practice and can dissect furthermore the New York Liberty for the next game. It is what it is. We can't use that as an excuse, but it's definitely going to be a challenging week. But at least there's one positive news. We got to hear from Stewie today. It was the first time that she was talking to the media since an injury, and she kind of gave us an update on how she's doing and when should we expect her to be back. So she was saying that she was doing much better now. She had just come off individual practice, and she said that for the first 2 weeks she didn't do anything. The pain was too big for her to do anything, so she just rested. But now she's finally can do some practice and lifting weights and just try to get better. So she's aiming for the end of August, and she's like pushing the training team to come back before her birthday. Her birthday is August the 27th, and she said it's a non-negotiable. So that means that she feels like she's in the right place, and she just has to train to have the cardio and the strength to come back. But she was saying that basically that game against LA, while she was running, she started to feel a pain on the knee, and she felt like she just irritated it. And next thing you know, it was a bone bruise. So we're glad that it wasn't a serious injury, and she just needed the rest, and now just like training and getting the strength that she needs to be back at a normal level. But I think that was positive to hear from her. She knows her body more than anybody else, and so I felt like hearing from her, you felt confident that she will come back soon and better than ever. And we're definitely gonna need Stewie. I think that for whoever doubted how important Stewie is to that team, well, you can see it now. How important she is and the holes that have been created now in her absence. So definitely looking forward to Stewie back. It won't be, unfortunately, against Minnesota, but it is what it is. The team has to learn how to play without her. And so thank you so much, guys, for listening to our podcast. We'll be trying to cover the West Coast games after the LA game, and then also trying to cover, obviously, this big game against Minnesota. But thank you so much for your support. And as we always say, Felicia, let's go Liberty!